Hello, everyone. Sorry, it's me again. I'm back on your screens. I bet you thought, oh, we've got rid of her for at least a couple of hours. No, I am back, but not for long. You'll be pleased to know we have got another absolutely phenomenal, fantastic gentleman that I'm going to bring on. And he is yet again given us his time to help us out with this event and to help us raise funds. You are definitely in for a treat. You'll understand why I said treat once he explains what he's going to be doing today. You haven't come to see me. I'm going to stop waffling and I'm going to bring on Dustin Pari. Hello, sir.
Hello. Good evening to you, Karen. Good afternoon over here. I hope you're doing well. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us. It's very much appreciated. So for those people which, like I've already said to you, I doubt there's anyone that doesn't know who you are. But for those that might not, would you like to just explain a little bit about yourself, please, and what you're doing for us today?
Sure. Thank you very much. My name is Dustin Pari. I was on shows like Ghost Hunters and Ghost Hunters International for many years. I did a little cameo on Destination Truth and Ghost Nation. So I've been involved in the paranormal since I was about 15 years old. So I'm in my 40s now. So it's been a heck of a journey. But while I've been doing this along the way, I've found a great camaraderie and friendship and kinship with the people I've met all over the globe. And I've started doing a lot of work in motivational speaking and suicide prevention. And so today's special presentation is not one of the paranormal kind, but it's something that I hope you'll enjoy from the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory book, or you may know it as Willy Wonka. I have a little presentation that I put together that takes a look at the story, takes apart the characters a little bit, and it's a lot of fun. And I hope it'll maybe give us a little different insight to how we live our lives and how we deal with some of the things that come up. And if you've seen me anywhere, I always tell people I really believe that we are spirits going through this human experience. And while we're here, we should be looking out for each other and loving and laughing and crying together and doing all the things that we have to do and feel. But we should be here together. And so that's why I do these kind of things. So I do hope that you'll enjoy today's presentation. And thanks again to Karen and everybody here at the festival for having me to be a part of this today.
Well, like I said, we appreciate it. We thank you very much. I am going to leave you to it. So they're probably all sick and fed up of seeing my face as it is. So it would be a nice little change for them to get rid of me and have an inspirational, motivational hour with you. So I will thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much, Karen. We'll see you in about an hour's time. So ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, as I do have a tendency to go long in some of these things when I talk, we're going to go ahead and start our little screen share here so that you'll be able to see this full screen. And then Karen, do me a favor and yell at me if it's not the way we want it to be. Don't mind me as I temporarily disrobe. We're going to lose a layer here as the flannel's a little bit hot this morning. It's a PG show, though, so that's where we stop. So anyway, this is where you can find me if you're looking for me anywhere. DustinParry.com is the website, all the social media channels. I do have a 120 video series on YouTube called Hey, Got a Minute? They're just short little motivational clips, so it ties into kind of the things I talk about here. But let's get started with today's show, Pure Inspiration, which are my thoughts on Roald Dahl's Charlie and the Chocolate Factory book, which hopefully many of you are familiar with, or maybe with one of the Willy Wonka movies, which all kind of find the same kind of lines of thought and stories. So if not, we'll walk you through it anyway. Always have to take a look back to see how things come together. So the original book was called Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. It was a creation of a British novelist, Mr. Roald Dahl. And so it was originally called Charlie's Chocolate Boy. And the idea was that there was a boy that was on like a field trip, and he's at the chocolate factory at Wonka's place, and he falls into a vat of chocolate and becomes cast as a chocolate-covered boy, and he's given to Wonka's son as an Easter gift. That story gets scrapped, and many other early drafts did too. And there were many other kids and things and storylines that they did not explore. But it finally gets published over in 1964 on January 17th. So it's really stood the test of time. It's been around a very long time. It's a story that many people still look to today. We learned a little bit about our author, who was born in 1916. And he actually had a history of being a chocolatier. Well, in a little way, he was a taste tester for the Cadbury Company. At the age of 13, when I first started traveling with Ghost Hunters International, the first trip I did for them was in New Zealand. And I was kind of heartbroken and forlorn about being away from my young family. And I was like, I don't know. And my hotel room was across the street from the Cadbury chocolate factory. And every day my room smelled like chocolate. And every day I went for the free tour. And I was like, this is my sign from God that this is where I should be. But Roald Dahl got to be a taste tester for that company as a young age. And maybe that kind of influenced a lot of this story. He was a pilot for the Royal Air Force. And he's also the inventor of a surgical instrument that's still in use today called the Wade-Dahl till valve. And that came about because a taxi hit his young son when he was an infant, right out of the cart. And they had to find ways to decrease the intracranial pressure in his head. The gentleman named Wade was actually a toy maker that worked together with Roald Dahl and this gentleman by the last name of Till, who was a surgeon. And they came together and they put together an idea to make this valve to decrease the intracranial pressure, which saved his young son's life. Unfortunately, he did have other heartache as he had a daughter who died of the measles. And it's always interesting to see, for me, the hardships that we all go through, because a lot of times we think that, oh, these people are famous, these people are famous authors or TV or whatever, their life must be wonderful. But none of us are exempt from the nonsense and the pain and the difficulties that come along in this life, So although he's well known and he did quite a lot of things, his life was not without its own tragedy as well. Now, his first book actually gets published in 1961, James and the Giant Peach. So you're going to think also at that time, he is of great age, and a lot of times we think, oh, okay, I haven't done anything by my 30s, I'm not going to accomplish anything else. This is the way of my life. Well, at this point, he's 45, which a lot of times people are kind of acquiesced to their situation. They don't think they can do anything different. But his first book gets published there, and look, everything that comes after that. So, I have to remember that myself sometimes, as I'm not as young as I like to remember myself to be. But as I am 43, I still have got 2 years to even do anything like Roald Dahl had done. So it's good to know that there's still time for all of us. All right, so let's look at the film. The film is an absolute disaster originally. In 1971, it makes only $4 million at the box office, which, I will take $4 million and not complain about it. But in terms of filmmaking at that time, it was not a great success. The author himself, Roald Dahl, hated the movie. He was not a fan, and they had to do some changes. They needed sponsorship to get the movie out there, right? So Quaker Oats put money into making chocolate, Willy Wonka chocolate bars. And so they did not want it to be called Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. They wanted Willy Wonka right there in the title. This way they could tie into it and try to get extra marketing revenue from it. So, of course, they're going to do that. And also, the NAACP stepped in because they felt there was a little bit of racism that was associated with the original title of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, because in the original book, the Oompa Loompas, which we'll talk about shortly, the Oompa Loompas were more of like a pygmy people that were enslaved. And they were not these magical little creatures from a special island that Willy Wonka had saved. So they had to make some changes in the book. And just to make sure that people weren't looking for those old copies of the book, they changed the name as well. So that's why it's called Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Now, the wonderful thing about this story, if you really look at it, if you watch the movie with Gene Wilder, who unfortunately just passed away last year, or you watch the movie with Johnny Depp, or perhaps you've read the book, it's not really about the chocolate. It's about the people. It's about the lessons. It's about the things that they represent. So as we move right along, we'll start looking at some of Wonka's everlasting lessons. We're going to keep these ideas in mind as we go through this story here. Poverty versus wealth, the vices that we all face in our life, karma and how that comes around, the punishment that we all have to go through as well for our actions. And then my favorite things, adventures in absurdity. If you know me from any of the shows, or you know me from social media or anything, I don't take myself too seriously. I take what I do very seriously, but I don't take myself very seriously, because I feel like it's a lot more fun to just kind of be a little bit wonky now and then, not be so concerned with everything all the time. And then one of my favorite little things I think that comes out of the story is understated packaging. Those heroes that rise up in the moment that nobody else ever would have thought to be who they really are. And I think that maybe can be said about a lot of us. A lot of us get underestimated because of the way we look, or because of things that we've done before, or whatever. But it's a great thing to be underestimated sometimes. It's of great advantage for people not to really take you as seriously as you may be. And it's nice to rise to that occasion and provide that type of surprise. So as we look at our characters, the first one, the main character outside of Willy Wonka, of course, Mr. Charlie Bucket. He's a young, poor boy, but he's got a really great, kind heart. He lives with his parents and all four of his grandparents, everybody in this tiny little shack together. And the Bucket's home, it's a very small, tiny little wooden house. And it's said in the book that it looms in the shadow of the great chocolate factory itself. So we're already seeing the haves and the have-nots. The Bucket family lives in this tiny little wooden house, and over there's this great big chocolate factory. So we have those that have the rich and those that have not, and the poor. And Charlie is a great character because, for me, he really epitomizes the idea of being selfless, which is something that many of us, I think, struggle with. I think our society has kind of made it in a way that we're always kind of self-focused, you know. Our cell phones are booths for one, you know. You get on there, you kind of zone in, you miss the people that are around you. We get tied up in social media. We're looking to see how many likes we get, how many retweets, how many shares. It's hard to be selfless when you're so self-focused. And the nice thing about Charlie Bucket is he's not self-focused. He thinks about those others that are around him and his family. One of the quotes from the book, as they're talking about finding those golden tickets, is, however small the chance might be of striking lucky, the chance was there. And I thought of this the other day when I went to play our local Mega Millions, Mega Bucks, Powerball, whatever the thing's called. I don't really follow the lottery that close, but I saw the billboard said 600 million. I said I could probably spend $2 on a ticket, because however small the chance might be of striking lucky, the chance was there. It's so often that we count ourselves out, that we're not going to be able to do something, that we give up sometimes before we even begin. If there's a chance that things are going to happen, if there's still breath in your lungs and blood in your veins, there's opportunity for you to do more, to rise to the occasion and to make it happen. So in the story here, there's going to be several golden tickets that are hidden in these chocolate bars and scattered throughout the world. And if you find one, you'll be able to go to Mr. Wonka's chocolate factory. Every year, the Buckets get one chocolate bar for young Charlie on his birthday. And it's built up to be a big thing, and you can see how much it means to him. But this year, maybe even more, because of the idea of the golden ticket being in there. And unfortunately, as he unwraps it, he unwraps disappointment, as there is no golden ticket. But there's still the chocolate. There's still something to be thankful for. And several pages in the book later, Charlie is walking through the streets, and as he looks down, he sees in the drain a small bit of money. And as he pulls that money out, he is able to go into the local chocolatier and buy not just a Wonka bar, but also some chocolate for his grandfather, his Grandpa Joe, always thinking of others and looking for that chance and believing that maybe things can change. Maybe it's not so much fate. Maybe destiny somehow is a little bit more. And so the golden tickets themselves, there's 5 that get sent out, it says in the stories, worldwide, as I mentioned, and the winner will get a tour of the factory and a procession of Wonka trucks filled with treats that will come to their home, and they will get a lifetime supply of tasty morsels. And then my favorite part is, mystical and marvelous surprises. That sounds like a wonderful thing for sure. The wildest dreams await you. I think often we don't dream big enough anymore, you know? I know this last year has been kind of wonky for everybody, but I kind of feel like we play smaller than we should, you know? I think there's a lot of room left in the world for dreamers, and maybe because of what we see around us and our own experiences as we go through life, we don't dream as big anymore. But we have to. We have to hold on to that idea. That golden ticket is our hope. It's our hope that things can still get better, that we can improve. Maybe we'll get some mystical and marvelous surprises along our way. And so sure enough, we do find a golden ticket, and Grandpa Joe is able to get out of bed, and he sings this great little song, I've got a golden ticket, and he dances around and kicks up his heels. I still sing that song, by the way. When randomly something goes right that I don't think is going to happen, that's my golden ticket moment. You know, it's a wonderful little thing for sure. And in the story, the ticket itself is not just a ticket to imagination and dreams, but it's also going to symbolize the difference between poverty and wealth. This is his ticket to a better life. This could even the scales between rich and poor, because if he's able to win all these things, well, things will get better for his family. And he's holding on to that hope. Hope is a slippery thing. Hope is very difficult for many of us, for sure, especially as we get older in life and longer in the tooth. We've got more experiences that we're like, oh yeah, I want to get my hopes up because it never works out, you know. But we have to hold on to hope. We have to hold on to our golden tickets and believe that maybe, just maybe, somehow things will get better. So as we enter the chocolate factory and we meet Mr. Willy Wonka himself, we realize all the possibilities that are here. The chocolate factory itself isn't just a place where chocolate is made, but a place where dreams are made. And it symbolizes the impossible of becoming reality. We have these life-size lollipops, these oversized mushrooms filled with candy goop and chocolate rivers and waterfalls. And it shows the power of imagination. And it's so important that we continue to feed that inner child within us, that we continue to have those dreams and to let our imagination roam and soar. You know, it's very often, I think, that as we get older, it's a sad comment, but I kind of feel like we stop dreaming, we stop imagining, we become kind of prisoners of the society that we've grown up in. And we believe that this is this, and this is the way it is, because that's all that there is to it. For my friends that are joining us here tonight that are involved in the paranormal, you know, if you speak to someone that doesn't believe in the afterlife, that doesn't believe in the idea of spirits and communication with spirits or crypto creatures, their mind sometimes is so closed, which is okay if you don't believe, for sure. It's not to be forced upon somebody, but to be angry about not believing, to have almost a hatred of the idea that these things could exist. Their imagination closed down so much. It's a very sad thing, I think, to come across that, you know. The next thing we learned about this chocolate factory, too, is as we see it on the outside, although it is ginormous in size, it is just a cold, you know, brick facade. And we don't see all the things that are inside it. And that's always a good thing for us to remember as well. We cannot judge a book by its cover or the building by what it's on the outside, or the people that we meet in our life by what's on the outside. And sometimes, you know, you try to get to know somebody and they leave that facade up for a while. It's sad, but there's many of us in this life that go through just hiding behind a thin little smile, telling people that, yeah, everything's okay, when sometimes it's not okay, when sometimes it's very, very difficult. And it's so important for us to know that it's okay to admit when things aren't okay, to reach out to someone when you need help, when you need someone to talk to. And if you don't have someone like that in your life, I urge you to find somebody. And if you're in a place sometimes that could be so dark and troubling as that you may think of self-harm or suicide, make sure you reach out to a therapist or someone from an organization that can help you. Because as I said at the start of the program, we are all in this life together here, you know. And my personal little goal, which sounds like a big one and a big dream for sure, is to try to change the world. But I really believe it's possible for all of us, especially if we work together. But we can't do it if one of us is missing. So it's so important that we all stay in this thing together. And so if you see somebody who's struggling, make sure you try to do your best to help them and don't judge them just by what's on the outside. So we've got our little villain here, Mr. Arthur Slugworth. Arthur Slugworth is a character that shows up and he represents temptation. He comes around to each child. We see him in the background. Each child, when they get the golden ticket, Arthur Slugworth is not far away. Somehow he always seems to know where they're going to be. And he offers them in secret some money if they're able to get their hands on some of Mr. Wonka's upcoming releases, some of his new ideas. There's that temptation in all our lives. And they may not be in Arthur Slugworth, but there's always temptation in our life. And we're not always strong enough to resist it, for sure. It's part of our human condition. It's part of our human experience that we go through. But as we get older, as we learn from our experiences, from our mistakes, and it's okay to make mistakes, it's just not okay to keep making them. But we find ways to deal with temptation. We find ways to deal with the people in our lives that may take us down the wrong path. And it's important to be aware of that and to keep an eye out for those things, because it never really goes away. So our first person to find himself a golden ticket, Mr. Augustus Gloop, our little German friend. He's overindulgent. While they're talking to him about the golden ticket, he's still eating. He loves the attention, but he loves his food even more, and his mom talks to him quite a bit. One of the reasons his mom actually in the movie spoke for him quite a bit was because the young actor that played Augustus Gloop was of German descent and did not know a lot of English. So he could memorize his lines what he could memorize, but other than that, he couldn't do much more. There wasn't going to be a lot of improv from young Augustus. So his mom had to handle most of it for him. And well, as we see him come into the factory, let's see how he leaves the factory. Augustus cannot resist the chocolate river. He is the first child to leave the factory a victim of his own vice of greed and gluttony. And as he's there with his hands in the river eating, knowing he's not supposed to be doing it, being told to stop, he cannot. That's something that many of us kind of come up against in this life. You know, something that seems maybe so innocuous and harmless in the beginning turns out to be something that is our very destruction. And sometimes we're not able to stop ourselves. So we need someone to help us out. Charlie tries to help. Charlie reaches down to him when he falls into the river with a big lollipop and tries to get him to hold on and to pull him out to safety. But unfortunately, it's too late. And as his mother comes over to Willy Wonka and to ask him what's going to happen to him, and he says, well, he's going to get stuck in the pipes, but eventually the pressure will come, push him out, go down to the burner. And they're like, oh, wait, no, it's Tuesday. It won't go to the burner. It'll go somewhere else, and we'll have to go save him. And she's so upset, and he says, ah, my lady, across the desert lies the promised land. Wonka has all these great little one-liners, and we're going to look at these further on in the presentation as well. But that is a great line in itself. The idea that we have to go through some things sometimes to get to where we want to be. And that's part of this human experience. We don't get everything we want right in the beginning of it, if we get it at all. Let's be honest. It's not always a fairy tale ending, but sometimes it is. And sometimes we find those things in the journey as we go across the desert are even more meaningful than our destination. And that's something that we can think about as well. It's not easy to get where we want to go. It's a lot of sacrifice. It's a lot of pain. It's a lot of change. It's a lot of work. One of my pet peeves is somebody sometimes will come to me and ask me for advice about something, and I try to help best I can. I'm not a licensed therapist, but I have a helpful heart, so I try to offer advice, and people will say, oh, if it was just that easy, and just kind of blow it off. I was like, well, it's not meant to be easy, is it? Sometimes it is a journey across the desert. And it's sad, and it's lonely, and it's hot, and you're thirsty. But if you're going to get to where you want to be, sometimes you have to put in the work, and you have to be aware of what that will take. So our Oompa Loompas enter the scene here for the first time. Our little orange voices of reason, our green-haired conscience. These things scare the heck out of me. As a child, I was not a fan. They were all moving in unison, and obviously their skin color was a little bit strange, and their crazy hairdos. But I've grown to find a little peace with the Loompas as we've gone forward here. And it's a wonderful little scene when they first come into play, and we start to hear a little bit more about them and learn about them, the songs that they sing and the things that they do. And I don't know why it went by so fast, but here it is again.
I've got a perfect puzzle for you. Oompa, loompa, doompa-dee-dee. If you are wise, you'll listen to me. What do you get when you guzzle down sweets? Eating as much as an elephant eats. What are you at, getting terribly fat? What do you think will come of that? I don't like the look of it. Oompa, loompa, doompa-dee-da. If you're not greedy, you will go far. You will live in happiness too. Like the Oompa, loompa, doompa-dee-doo. Doompa-dee-doo.
I don't know, they're still a little freaky. I'm still coming to peace with it. Perhaps the more I see it, it's still a little weird. We'll move along and talk about Miss Veruca Salt, of which there was a great band in the 90s named for her as well, Veruca Salt. But she, the young lady in the book, is the second person to find herself a golden ticket. She comes from a very wealthy family. Her daddy buys her everything that her little heart could possibly want. And she knows how to manipulate people because of that. She knows how to manipulate her dad and those around her. She knows how to manipulate her environment to get whatever it is that Veruca Salt wants for herself. She is pretty much the archetypical little brat. And as she's very clear in saying she wants everything and she wants it now. Indeed, as we're looking at the gooses with the golden eggs, she stands up and does this whole little song about how she wants everything in her life. She wants it now. And she's definitely a bad egg for sure. She's actually the third child to leave the factory, but as we see them, we go in sequence of how they come in. She represents greed and also a little bit of anger. That is something that we see so much, I think, in abundance in our societies. Unfortunately, there's people that just want everything and they want it now, and they don't leave enough on the table for others. They don't think about sharing with others. And when they're questioned about it or they're told they can't have something, anger is the first thing that they jump to. I really feel like as we move forward as a society, as a people globally, I feel like we need to give each other a little bit more room, a little bit more time to make mistakes, to understand, to discuss things. But we don't do that. We quickly jump to anger all the time, you know? And I feel like we just need to give people a little bit more time, especially with all that's going on globally lately. Life is probably, you know, more difficult than it's been in I don't know, maybe 60, 70 years or so. Maybe we could give each other a little bit more space to make mistakes and not jump to anger all the time and not be so greedy. Allow people to share things. You know, you may not have as much as you want. You know, maybe you'll never have as much as you want, but maybe you have enough where you can share with those that are around you. You can just give a little bit back at least. It's such a sad thing, but I feel our society, our world is so materialistic. It's all about the things, and it's really not. That's not what life's about. Life is about the people. It's about our experiences together. But it's easy because we are being told all the time by advertising and the media that we need to buy this, we need to have that, the newest one of these, the shiniest ones of that. And that is not what all of this is truly about. And Miss Veruca Salt gets judged as a bad egg, and she is out of the factory. Miss Violet Beauregard. Violet was the third child to find herself a golden ticket. She is the current world record holder for gum chewing for 3 solid months, she says. She's very, very competitive for sure. And because of this, when Willy Wonka introduces his new gum that has a full course meal in there, you will have the appetizer, you have the main dish, and then, of course, dessert. He's like, well, it's not quite done yet, so I don't want you to have it. But she insists, and he says, no, stop, don't. In his classic Wonka deadpan, showing that he's kind of okay with this because this child needs to learn this lesson. She is the second person actually in the story to leave. And as she's eating the gum, she blows up like a huge blueberry that's bursting with juice and will need to go to the juicing room. And we see a little bit of vanity here too. Not only is she competitive and looks to want to be better than everybody else, but she holds herself in such high accord. She's awfully vain. And so this is a very detrimental situation she finds herself in. I think the most important thing about Violet Beauregard is us taking responsibility for our actions. It's one of those things where I look around and a lot of people don't like to do that anymore. We like to blame somebody else. It's somebody else's fault that this happened to me. It's somebody else's fault that I feel this way. It's somebody else's fault that these things are going on. We are not quick to ever take responsibility for things. So Violet Beauregard finds herself in this situation as a direct result of her lack of concern for what was being told to her, and she's responsible for this outcome. And of course, she will need to go to the juicing room to get reduced in size. A funny little side story from this is the actress that played Violet Beauregard, after filming was done, she was back in school a day or two later, and I believe it was in math class, where all of a sudden her skin started to sweat out this blue makeup that was somehow she had a reaction to and was buried deep within her pores. So it's different times then, different techniques and things, you know. But it's important that we take responsibility for our actions, for the people that we become, and for those that are around us in terms of how we interact with them. Mike TV, little Mike TV is our fourth person to find himself a golden ticket. He watches television constantly, like so many other people I know. He's highly intelligent, and it's actually one of his downfalls too, because he thinks he knows everything. And much like Augustus was too busy eating to talk about him finding the golden ticket, Mike TV is the same way. They're trying to interview him, but he's too busy watching television to talk about how he found his golden ticket. And if you follow me on social media, you know I'm not a big technology guy. And I love the fact that I can stand here in my den and just put some lights on this afternoon and talk to you from wherever you are. And last year was, despite being horrible with the virus and such, it ended up being my busiest year ever because of things like Zoom and StreamYard. I did 80 lectures standing here. So I appreciate technology being able to bring us together for sure. But I feel like there's just so much importance upon it and a dependence upon it that it's kind of also tearing us apart. You know, I have a new lecture called Screened that I'm debuting this year, and it talks a lot about a lot of the psychological things that go along with our dependence upon this technology. Now, Mike TV sees that Mr. Walker is sending things via television waves across the rooms. He wants to be the first boy to travel by TV, and sure enough, he does. And because of that, he's the fourth child to leave the factory because he was the first person to be sent by television, but he becomes very, very small in the meantime. But he's still happy. He says, it's the greatest thing to ever happen to me. He doesn't even care about the current situation that he's in. He's so blinded to it. And Mike, outside of his great intelligence, also is guilty of sloth in that he is very lazy. He just sits around and watches TV all day. He memorizes all the things he sees on television all the time. He's conceited in his knowledge of those things that he's learned in TV. And I feel like this is something that happens a lot in our society now, you know, because I remember when TV was on TV. Now it's where? It's on your phone. It's being streamed. It's in the cloud. It's on this platform. You can download this app. You're not putting the rabbit ear antennas on the TV anymore. You're not going up on the roof to adjust the antenna. I remember these things from when I was little because, yes, I'm that damn old. But the other problem that comes along with this is idol worship. Regardless of whatever god or goddess you may choose to worship or not, that's up to you. But I really feel like TV or whatever platform TV's on or social media, technology has become our new idol. Technology is the altar at which all of us worship day in and day out. Wake up in the morning, first thing you do is you check your phone. Last thing you do before you go to bed. Usually check your phone. Again, I'm a Christian. That's my background. It's been a long path. But I feel like not enough people pray anymore. Not enough people are thoughtful of the spiritual realm, especially those of us that are involved in paranormal investigation. Like, we're probably, you know, firsthand witnesses to the afterlife. So it should make you think more about whatever that path may be for you. And whatever one it is, it's fine. I believe all religions are one. I think that if we strip away all the differences, or maybe even choose to celebrate the differences, which is a nice thing, I think that in the core we find love, which is what it's all about, you know. But the idea that thoughts have weight, and to be thoughtful, to be mindful, to pray upon something, to wish others well, to send your thoughts and prayers to someone, if you truly are doing it and not just typing it into a keyboard or on your phone, I think those things do matter. And I think that because maybe we don't do that because we just stare at the screen all the time, there's this false idol worship thing going around. And I think we're becoming more technological and less spiritual. And I think that's why this life gets so difficult for us sometimes. There's a line from a book. It's called is it The Victorian Home for Wayward Girls, I think? It's in my YouTube series. But there's a line in there that's often misattributed to Alice in Wonderland, to the caterpillar, because the imagery is there. But a character in the Victorian Home for Wayward Girls, if that is indeed the title of it, says, you are a very real thing in a very fake world, and I think that's why it's so painful for you. And that's what I often feel myself, personally. I go through a great deal of struggle with this life sometimes. One of the reasons I do the motivational work is because sometimes I'm just talking to myself, and I think maybe other people could gain some help from this, you know? But I really feel that. I feel like we are very real things in a very fake world, and it doesn't match up all the time, and it doesn't make sense all the time. And maybe that's why sometimes we feel so much pain. So then our friend Charlie, well, he is unfortunately misled by his grandfather, and he has the fizzy lifting drink, which floats them up into the air. And it's a great example of being perfectly imperfect. He's done everything to the letter that he was supposed to do while he was in the factory. And then one of the people closest to him, someone that he trusts, that he loves, that he admires, that he adores, he looks up to, takes him down the wrong path and says, well, we can have just a little bit of this, Charlie. It'll be okay. And we see that Charlie and Grandpa Joe make a mistake here. But what's important, what comes of it, is to know that it's okay to make mistakes. The important thing is that we learn from them, and that we see as they were escalating up and rising into the air toward the fan, that there is going to be some very harsh and drastic situation that was going to be a direct result of their mistake. But there's still time to change. They find a way out, in which this case is burping. That may not work in real life with mistakes. It may, depends on the situation. But the important thing is that we find ways to make ourselves better, that we learn from our mistakes and that we don't make them again and we continue forward. So we'll wrap up with our man, Mr. Willy Wonka, and some of the most wonderful little bits of turn of phrase and idea that I think any character ever had. And although I love Johnny Depp, I like him better as a pirate and less as a chocolatier, because I just don't think he can match the artistry and the brilliance of the original Willy Wonka movie with Gene Wilder. I just think it was just so fantastic. So some of the lines he says here, he's talking to one of the parents. He says, well, a little nonsense now and then is relished by the wisest men, which is actually written in Charlie and the Great Glass Elevator and also sometimes attributed to an author previous to Roald Dahl. But I love that idea. A little nonsense now and then is relished by the wisest men. I know I often will get criticized for not taking things seriously enough. But again, I really do. It's just I don't portray it sometimes. You know, I portray maybe somebody that's a little bit too happy in this world, which is a funny thing, by the way, too. I often get told I'm too kind. Like, these seem like wonderful attributes. Why would you be too much of them? But it's important to be a little nonsensical, to have a little fun, to take yourself a little less seriously from time to time, you know? And it really makes this experience of life a lot easier to deal with, too, because sometimes those days that I come home after working 10 hours and I sit in traffic for like 45 minutes and I get home, I'm like, what am I doing right now? I'll go to my fridge and I'll have, in the refrigerator, I often keep a canister of cake frosting. And I will get just a little spoonful of, specifically rainbow chip is my favorite, the vanilla with the little chocolate colored morsels. I just get 1 teaspoonful. And it's just my little bit of nonsense, that little bit of happiness for that inner child to get me through the day. So look for little opportunities to have a little nonsense now and then. Miss Veruca Salt is upset when she sees the wallpaper that you can scratch and sniff and lick, and they taste like the things they are. And she says, snozberries? What's a snozberry? That's not a real thing. And Wonka turns to her and says, we are the music makers, and we are the dreamers of dreams. That actually comes from British poet Arthur O'Shaughnessy. And it's absolutely true. She's having a hard time believing in this, that she cannot wrap her brain around, that she, although she's actually seeing and tasting it, she's never experienced in real life. So this cannot be a real thing. Again, for my paranormal friends, you are familiar with this for sure. But we are the music makers. We are the dreamers of dreams. We can create as well in this world. It doesn't always have to be there for you. And just because you may not have seen it or experienced it before does not mean that it fails to exist. You've just not come across it in your human experience as of yet. But it's so important that you keep your mind open to these possibilities. And as our young lady who blew up like the blueberry was being rolled out, they turned to Wonka for hope, for advice again. And he's sitting there drinking butter from a literal butter cup. And he says, where is fancy bread, in the heart or in the head? And this Shakespeare from The Merchant of Venice, which is going to be quoted again in this book, in this movie as well. Indeed, where is fancy bread? And what is it that we want? Is it something of the heart? Is it something of lust? Or is it something of logic? Because it can be various things, those things that we want in our life. And we have to figure out what that is. And I think in the case of Miss Violet Beauregard, it was something that was more of a lustful experience. She wanted to have this even though she was not supposed to. Logically, she would have known this was not the right choice. And so in our life, we're always being given these choices of lust or logic, of something that makes sense or something that's just going to feel good in our life. And sometimes those decisions are difficult. And it's not just a sexual thing either, just many things that may not be good for us in this life or those around us. A lot of times things that benefit us could be a great detriment to those that are around us, but we may often be so self-focused, like our friend Mike TV, that we miss that. So always be mindful and not just be doing things for yourself. One of my favorite scenes in the movie itself in the 70s is when they get on the little rowboat And Gene Wilder's just kind of staring at everybody open-eyed, and he says, there's no earthly way of knowing which direction we are going. There's no knowing where we're rowing or which way the river's flowing. And he goes into this maniacal diatribe and laughter, and there's images flashing around of insects, and it's just craziness. And some of the actors in the scene thought that Gene Wilder actually lost it a little bit because they were not prepared for what was going to be happening. But I think it's a great little bit of turn of phrase, and it's a great little soliloquy that he has here. Because in this life, we often think we know what we're doing. We think we know where we're going. We've got that 5-year plan. We've made our ideas. We've got our directions. We've gone to school. We're going to go and do this. This is what we've always wanted. This is our passion. This is our life. And then there's detours. There's things that you didn't expect to happen. And they pull you in different directions because there is no earthly way of knowing which direction we are going. We may believe we know. We may want with all our desire and our passion to go one way, but in turn we may go somewhere else. You can't control everything. And that's okay. That's part of the human experience. A lot of times I get people that write to me and they're afraid of flying. They know I've traveled the world, so I've flown quite a bit more than the average person. How do you deal with it? I personally have never had a fear of flying. I've done skydiving and everything else. And I also don't really have a fear of a lot of things like that. This is not like a grandiose, like macho type thing, because that pop-out things scare me. I won't go to like one of the haunted house attractions because I hate when actors pop out to try to scare. I hate being scared. I like real ghosts. I like real spirits. I like real haunted houses, but I don't like fake things. Those things bother me. But I've never had a fear of flying. But what I tell people is you can't control any of it. There is no way of knowing which direction you're going at that moment. All you can choose is if you want peanuts or if you want pretzels. Sometimes you can pick your seat depending how much money you spent in your ticket. That's all you can control. You're not flying the thing. You weren't the mechanic. You don't control the weather. You have to let go sometimes. You have to just go with whatever way the river's flowing sometimes. It's not always to say that you should just go with the flow and do what everybody else is doing. No, be independent, be thoughtful, do your own thing. But that which you truly cannot control, that which you truly cannot change, sometimes you just gotta just go with it and just see what comes of it. Sometimes some of the most magical and strange and wonderful things will come on those weird little side journeys. And so then as we wrap up the show here, well, it comes to pass that they're not going to give the factory to young Charlie. And Grandpa Joe has problems.
I'm extraordinarily busy, sir. I just wanted to ask about the chocolate. The lifetime supply of chocolate for Charlie. When does he get it? Doesn't. Why not? Because he broke the rules. What rules? We didn't see any rules, did we, Charlie?
Wrong, sir. Wrong. Under Section 37B of the contract signed by him, it states quite clearly that all offers shall become null and void if, and you can read it for yourself in this photostatic copy, I, the undersigned, shall forfeit all rights, privileges, and licenses herein and herein contained, etc., etc. Fax mentis incendium gloria culpum, etc., etc. Memo bis punitor delicatum. It's all there, black and white, clear as crystal. You stole fizzy lifting drinks. You bumped into the ceiling, which now has to be washed and sterilized, so you get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir.
You're a crook. You're a cheat and a swindler. That's what you are. How can you do a thing like this? Build up a little boy's hopes and then smash all his dreams to pieces. You're an inhuman monster!
I said good day!
Come on, Charlie. Let's get out of here. I'm getting with him if it's the last thing I ever do. Slugworth wants a gobstopper, and he'll get one.
Mr. Wonka?
So shines a good deed in a weary world. Charlie goes back and gives the only trinket that he has from this journey. He gives the only thing that he can give back to Mr. Wonka to make up for what he has done. But it means so much. Again, The Merchant of Venice, William Shakespeare, referring to a candle that is casting light down a long hallway. So shines a good deed in a weary world. Our world can be so dark sometimes. It's so shadowy, filled with some very shadowy people, very disingenuous, out for themselves. That one good deed, that one smile that you give to somebody can shine so brightly, can make such a difference. That scene is such a great scene. And I love you get nothing, you lose, sir. Good day. So powerful. Gene Wilder didn't tell the young actor how he was going to portray this scene because the producers wanted it to be so authentic, but he felt bad in doing so because they had such a great kinship and he didn't want to scare the child. But it is such a powerful thing. The one thing that he could have given to Slugworth to change his family's stars, to make plenty of money, he gives back to the man who just told him that he failed him. Sometimes that one good deed that we're all capable of really can make great change. And as we're closing out, they're flying off in the glass elevator, which goes to the second book. And Wonka says, but Charlie, don't forget what happened to the man who suddenly got everything he ever wanted. And Charlie says, well, what happened? He lived happily ever after. Now, this was added. This was not in the book. This was added from the movie. And I think it's a great little line because we always think that we can't have everything that we want, that things can't possibly work out, that there always has to be some dark cloud somewhere. But you know what? Sometimes things just work out. Sometimes we can live happily ever after. And so a quote from myself: if you want to be happy, eliminate the expectation and unlock the magic in your imagination. Oftentimes we look at the world and we think, oh, like the glass is half full, half empty. I want this. I need that. Get rid of that expectation. You are given everything that you need. It's there inside you. It's in your imagination. There's magic that's within all of us. We're capable of doing great things. And if you want to view paradise, simply look around and view it. Anything you want to, just do it. If you want to change the world, like me, perhaps there's nothing to it. If we all just keep working together, we keep trying to treat each other as equals, and being loving and kind, and daring to dream, and holding on to hope to our golden tickets, maybe we can just do that. Ladies and gentlemen, that is my presentation, and we shall come back out of our share screen here. That's where you need me, DustinPari.com. You can find, and everything just went black, which is not a good thing. Or maybe it's a wonderful thing. It's hard to tell. I wonder what is going on. So I don't know if you can see me or hear me, but suddenly my laptop is black.
We can see you and
there
we
can
go.
Hear you. Oh, I think we're coming back around.
Oh, there it is. It's because your screen went black, so I brought you back on.
Playful spirits are messing with our thing. There we go. We're coming back. All right. I'm going to stop my share screen. That'll probably help.
Okay. Can you hear me, Justin?
So that was the program. If you guys have any questions, I can hear you now. Yes. I don't know what happened at the end there. It all just blacked out.
I know. I was like, oh, it's gone. So I thought, right, I'll put you back on the screen in that case.
I don't know what happened. I had no control of anything. I was just here alone with the lights suddenly, but I was hoping it'd come back.
Wow, that was. I don't even know what to say. It's obviously it's supposed to be motivational, inspirational. It's all of those things. It was all of those things and more. It really. I am literally, anyone that knows me knows I can talk for England, but I'm literally, honestly, I genuinely am. I don't know what to say. I am speechless.
I'm quite flattered, Karen.
My husband will be shocked. He'll be like, "What? What did he do? Teach me." Wow, thank you.
I'm frozen up here for some reason.
Oh,
There we go.
Kelly Kennedy says, that was wonderful. You had me in tears at the end.
Oh, that's very sweet. Well, thank you very much. Thank you. I apologize. My screen was glitching there. We're in a storm pattern here, so I'm glad we got through the presentation
there. Gary says, that takes some doing. You know, he's impressed. Robin, very passionate, excellent motivational speaker, beyond words. Robin, exactly. I'm never stuck for words. I can never stop talking.
That's very sweet.
I just don't know what to. So thought-provoking. I just don't know what to say to you. I'm just going to read the comments because I'm just literally at a loss. Rose said, brilliant, very interesting, inspiring. Thank you, Dustin. And Robin says, gave her goosebumps. Oh, he's gone. He must have lost his internet signal. Guys, hopefully he will come back. Very passionate man, very inspirational, very motivational, and well, I'm glad you all enjoyed it. I think there was a lot there that we all needed to hear. And the way that he worded everything, the way he put the presentation together, I wasn't sure what to expect, to be perfectly honest. With the presentation, I didn't know how it was going to impact us all. And I'm glad to say, Sarah said, made me feel very inspired. Me neither. I didn't know what to say. It was that good. Carol says it was fantastic. I'm going to put this one on the screen. What an unusual, unique way of putting a great message across. I salute you, sir. And my wife, speechless. It's true. I was. Let me know, guys. If you haven't commented already, let me know what you thought to that, because I thought it was fantastic. Really enjoyed it. Sarah says, I never knew he was a motivational speaker. I just thought he was on Ghost Hunters. Absolutely brilliant. Well, actually, you know what? He's not here to tell you himself. I have got a list of things here about Dustin. Obviously, as we know, he's from Ghost Hunters. He's a motivational speaker. He's a spiritual researcher. He's also an author. He's got the Kaleidoscope Fragments of My Life book and The Devil Shivered, Complete Approach, My House is Haunted and What Now. So they're the names of the books that he has. So you can find Dustin. He's got his own Facebook page. He has got his own website, which you can find him on and contact him. And as he was explaining, obviously, like he said, he's got his YouTube as well. So we will get what was he saying about gremlins? Did someone mention gremlins? I don't know what happened then. I didn't do anything. Yeah, sorry about that. Don't know what happened. Don't know how I disappeared. I just went off. Sorry about that. I do apologize. But yes, the links are being put by our fantastic moderators. They are putting the links in the comments right now. So we've gone from a fantastic motivational talk to, next up, we have got the lovely Heavenly Helen. Heavenly Helen does our Tuesday night slot on Keep On Chatting. And we thought it'd be a good idea after an uplifting, fantastic, motivational talk and inspiring talk like that to then go on to Heavenly Helen next, who will be teaching you about chakra balancing. So she is going to teach you how to balance your own chakras at home, because obviously at the moment we can't go anywhere, we can't do anything. So we can't go and see anyone for Reiki or healing and so on. It's all at distance. So we are bringing Helen on, and she is up next for you, and she will be teaching you about chakra balancing. Apologies, Dustin did say they had a storm earlier today. He actually had no electricity. He didn't even know if he would even be able to join us because he was waiting for the electricity to come back on. But lucky enough he was. And I will thank him from all of you. Stay right where you are and please join Heavenly Helen for chakra balancing. And then straight after Heavenly Helen, we have the Ghost Finders, and they will be live having a chat with us. So stay where you are, guys, and please join Heavenly Helen. Thank you all so much for joining us so far. And thank you for helping us raise funds for Calm. For any of you that have not been watching last night or the last 23 hours, I'm just going to play you a short video, and then you will be able to go over and join Heavenly Helen. Thank you, everyone. It's much appreciated.